How religious anti-abortion Republican freaks are using data brokers to track women. This is spooky stuff. Probably the most high-profile case of this did not involve a woman. It actually involved a gay priest, a bishop, who was rather outspoken against gay people. And his name was Jeffrey Burrill. He was the Monsignor in Wisconsin, a Catholic priest. He was the General Secretary of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. And some people bought from a data broker, bought information that they could track back to his phone that showed that he was visiting basically gay prostitutes. And that he had he had this gay dating app on his phone, and they were able to track him through that. Well, you know, half the apps on your phone, maybe 3/4, maybe 9/10, I don't know. But most of the apps on your phone, if you go into your control settings and look at location services, you'll see almost every app on your phone every 5 minutes or so is sending, is pinging back to the mothership, the app mothership, where you are. And in many cases, what other apps are open on your phone, in other words, what you're doing. And sometimes even data about what you're doing, URLs that you're visiting and things like that. And there's these data brokers who buy this stuff from the apps. It's a revenue source for the apps. This is how Google makes their money. They sell your data. It's pure and simple, right? They sell it to advertisers. It's how Facebook makes their money. It's how Twitter makes their money. And so now the concern, and it's a very real one and a really legitimate one, is what happens when the anti-abortion freaks get hold of this data. And we have not quite yet hit that point yet, and I think it's because everybody's waiting for the dust to settle on the legal issues. But you get a Republican in the White House who puts into place a nationwide ban, so this is federal law now rather than just state law. Or, Greg Abbott gets reelected and is feeling his oats down in Texas, and he decides to go after women, and all they have to do is just start buying the data of which women have gone to which abortion clinics and what places, who started out in Texas. $10,000 per woman. And it's not like they've never done this before. I mean, last April, police in Nebraska used data that they'd obtained from a social media platform, in this case it was Facebook, to arrest 17-year-old Celeste Burgess and her mother, Jessica Burgess, after Celeste gave birth to a stillborn child, or a stillborn whatever. If the mother and daughter had been discussing obtaining abortion pills on Facebook, they thought it was a private message. It wasn't. Facebook turned it over to the police. 32-year-old Jenny McCormick was charged in Idaho with a 5-year felony of inducing her own abortion. She'd obtained the pills through the mail via the internet. Purvi Patel was sentenced to 20 years in an Indiana prison for getting abortion pills through the mail and using them. On appeal, they lowered that to 18 months, which she had already served in prison at that point. The evidence against her came from her own phone. In Arkansas, Ann Bynum was arrested after giving birth at home to a stillborn fetus. Prosecutors also went after her friend Karen Collins, who helped her obtain abortion pills through the mail. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Mississippi prosecutors charged Latice Fisher with murder following the stillborn birth of her fetus. She'd only known she was pregnant for a month. They seized her phone and found that she'd searched for information on obtaining abortion pills and used that to prosecute her, charging her with murder. She could get the death penalty, although they couldn't find the proof that she'd actually gotten the pills, so they had to drop the charges. I mean, this is just based on what she did on her phone. As Senator Tammy Baldwin noted, quote, "The companies collect incredibly precise data location and time data from millions of Americans' phones. That data can reveal where people who visit abortion clinics came from, where they go afterwards, and even where they live. And anyone can buy the company's data." In fact, to add to this, Vice magazine went out and bought data like this, and they got data on who had visited over 600 abortion clinics or places that affiliated with abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood centers, all across the country for a 1-week period, and it cost them $120, less than $200. So, I mean, this is serious stuff that we need to be, taking seriously. And how did this begin? Well, it began when Donald Trump and Ajit Pai, the Verizon lawyer who Donald Trump put in charge of the FCC, ended net neutrality. We really should not have called it net neutrality. We should have called it net privacy. because privacy is a positive thing and neutrality is kind of a neutral thing, right? So we kind of played into the hands of the telecom industry when we used the phrase that they wanted, net neutrality. But it used to be that your internet service provider could not spy on you. They could not track everything you do. Now they can, and they do. It used to be they couldn't sell that information. Now they can, and they do. It used to be your phone company couldn't track everything you did, everything you said. Now they can, and they do. And if you're using VoIP phone, if you've got that little button click that says, yes, use internet telephone, then they can listen to your calls as well. And you know, we don't know if they do or not, but they certainly have the legal right to, because of what Donald Trump and Ajit Pai did. They can track and record every website you visit. They can read every email you send or receive. They can log every search you do, even if you're using like DuckDuckGo and other, or other private search engines, because they have all the data going into and coming out of your phone. They know everything that's on your phone, thanks to Donald Trump and Ajit Pai. So bottom line, we got to do something about this. We've got to fix this. Now, data brokering, and by the way, we're the only developed country in the world, just like, with healthcare, we're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have a national healthcare system. We're also the only country in the developed world that allows data brokers to do this and allows apps and web developers and big web companies. It's become a $200 billion a year industry. And if you were to add Facebook and Google to that, their ability to track everything you're doing, it becomes a multi-hundred billion, a $1 trillion a year industry. So, I end the article saying, if Democrats ever take back the House, the Senate, and the White House all at once, this needs to be at the top of their list. But I'm telling you, there's going to be, you've got a $1 trillion industry, a $200 billion data broker industry, and a $1 trillion ad revenue industry at stake here. They are going to spend a fortune on television ads and lobbying and buying politicians to prevent this from happening. But you need to know about this, and you need to know what is entirely possible right now and what might be coming down the road.